So you thought we were done with the base, but we're not. We're going to keep going. All right, let's get the UVs laid out for this thing. So we don't have a mess of UVs to do all at one time. We're just going to kind of do them as we go along. All right, so what do we need to do for this? Let's look at the UVs first. This is Maya 2018, so if you're in an older version, it may look a lot different because they really updated it a lot in like the third update of 2017. So you may not see some of this stuff. So for instance, let's just say you pulled up UV editor and you see this. The reason why we have this nice grid laid out like this is because we built this object from a curve and revolve. And what happens is that the NURBS basically lays out the UVs nice and even, but they're technically not laid out proportionately the way they are in the model. So if I turn on my distortion here, you can see that the blue area is getting too much space and the red area is getting too little space. The white is accurate as it is compared to the other areas. So if you don't have the distortion thing, you'll just have to follow along and understand that we need to fix the proportions here. So the first thing I can do is go to my faces or my UVs. You can select all your UVs, and I need to scale these like this because we're getting way too much space. And when I get closer now, you can see that it's not as red, and there's a little bit more white in the red areas, so it looks more pink. The blue hasn't quite gotten fixed that well though, but I can keep going here, and you can see that we're getting closer to the proper proportions to each other. So there's probably an easier way to do this though, which is to just use an unfold on this object. So I'm gonna pull it a little bit bigger like this. And now I'm not gonna go in and use my unfold in this panel here. I'm actually gonna find it in the menu. And if you're in the older version of Maya, it'll be in the edit menu, kind of all the way at the bottom. But the newer version, it's in modify, and I'm gonna get the options. And the first thing I'm gonna do is let's reset everything and start fresh. I'm going to go to my legacy. So let me just show you what happens if I hit apply here with the regular. You're going to get like this weird, rounded one. But it worked really well. You can see there's no distortions anymore. So that's actually good. But I want something different. What I want is I want this to be able to be laid out in my 0 to 1 space here in the UVs, nice and straight like this, so that if I use a tileable texture, if I have straight edges here along the edges, the textures can match up properly, the pixels can match up properly, and that's stuff that you'll have to learn in a different tutorial because this is about modeling in UVs. But if I can keep it kind of like this, but have it just the right spacing between my my polygons here, my UVs here, then I'll be happy. So let's go to legacy. And what I'm going to do in legacy is that the default has it set at 5,000 iterations. And so if I hit apply, you kind of get like this wonky, wobbly looking thing here. But that's because it's doing so many iterations. If I go ahead and turn this way down to, let's just say, let's leave it at like 103 is fine. Anywhere like 100, right around 100, and hit apply. You can see like it did a relax on it, if you will, or an unfold on it, and it fixed a lot of the problems, but it did make it warped a little bit. Now, in days past, if I really wanted this to be straight, I could come into here, and there's actually tools. Like one thing you could do is you could just scale this on one axis, and you could scale these back to being straight like that. But then I'd have to go through and do that to every single one of these. And in the past, when I didn't have the right kind of tools, I would actually do that if it was for a professional project. One of the things you can do here is in the new transform menu. Actually, the older one has this too, but the buttons look different. You can actually, I think it's in transform. Maybe I'm mistaken. Let's see. Actually, it's in align. That's where it's at. So in here, you can use these buttons to. You just hit the button, and this will actually align the UVs in the middle based on where you have them. So if I wanted it to, let me undo that. If I wanted to align it down to basically the lowest UV, I can go ahead and hit this, and you'll see that it goes to the lowest UVs right here. So you can see that. But typically I would use like the middle one, or you can use obviously your scale tool. But in the new Maya, you don't have to do that because we have a new tool that works really nicely for this. So I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to come back to my unfold, and you have the straighten UV, Y and V. This doesn't, I said Y and V, U and V. This doesn't work on everything, but in this case, it should work. So I'm telling it like, hey, straighten it this way and straighten it this way. So I can just hit this button, and hopefully it doesn't have any hiccups and it works properly. With a mesh like this, it can work, but with other meshes, it depends on how your mesh is laid out. It might not work. This one, and see, it's working fine. So now I'm pretty well, as you can see, there's very little distortion, and yet there's not really, it's not going curvy, so I'm happier with this. So one thing I want to do is I'm going to select this line of pixels right here, if I can get them. I got too many. And I keep this deselecting them. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I'm in UVs, and I'm just trying to select the UVs. I'm going to go to my move tool, and I'm just going to adjust that so it turns white. Okay, so now I feel like this is unwrapped nicely. So I'm going to take this for now, and I'm just going to move it outside of the space. Okay, I might even say, okay, I'm going to move it all the way to this kind of like a whole unit over. Just move it to there. And now the UVs for this one are pretty much done. I'm happy with that. The original way that I unfolded it, you can do it that way, but when you're laying your UVs out, that's not going to come out as nice. It is less distortion though, but this is very little distortion as well, so we should be okay with this. All right, so that's it for the UVs for this base piece, and let's move on to modeling the next piece.